Brock Lesnar is in a hospital right now, and CM Punk is the reason why. What happened on Monday Night Raw is being called the most shocking, most violent, and most controversial moment in WWE history, and the mainstream media is losing their minds. We're talking potential lawsuits. We're talking criminal investigations. We're talking about Brock Lesnar's career possibly being over. And CM Punk? He just walked into Raw, destroyed the Beast Incarnate in front of millions of people, and walked out like he owns the place. If you missed what happened, you need to sit down for this because I'm about to show you frame by frame exactly how CM Punk ended Brock Lesnar's reign of terror, and why WWE might be facing the biggest crisis in company history. The footage I'm about to describe is so brutal that USA Network is considering pulling it from all replays, and sponsors are threatening to walk away. This is not a work. This is not storyline. This is real, and it's absolutely insane. The setup, let me take you back to exactly what led to this moment, because you need to understand the full context of why what happened on Raw is so significant. For the past 3 months, Brock Lesnar has been on an absolute rampage through the WWE roster. He's destroyed Cody Rhodes. He's obliterated Seth Rollins again. He's made Drew McIntyre look like an amateur. Every single week, Brock would come out, Paul Heyman would do his speech, and then Brock would F5 someone into oblivion. It became predictable. It became stale. And most importantly, it became boring. Fans started turning on Brock. Not because he's not talented, but because WWE was booking him like an unstoppable monster with no weaknesses, no vulnerabilities, and no end in sight. Social media was flooded with complaints about how Brock was making everyone else look weak. Ratings started to dip during Brock's segments. Even the live crowds were getting quieter during his appearances. WWE had a serious problem on their hands. Behind the scenes, according to multiple sources, there were heated discussions about what to do with Brock. Some people in creative wanted to turn him babyface. Others wanted to find a credible challenger who could finally beat him. But there was one major problem: nobody on the current roster felt like they could believably defeat Brock Lesnar in the eyes of the audience. Roman Reigns is on SmackDown doing his thing. Cody already lost to him. Seth already lost to him multiple times. Who was left? And that's when someone, and we're hearing it might have been Triple H himself, suggested the absolute nuclear option: bring back CM Punk and let him be the one to end Brock Lesnar. The secret negotiations now. Here's what most people don't know about CM Punk's return to WWE. The negotiations had been going on for months in complete secrecy. We're talking burner phones, encrypted emails, meetings in random hotel conference rooms, the whole spy movie setup. Because if word got out that Punk was even talking to WWE, it would have leaked immediately and ruined the surprise. According to sources close to the negotiations, Punk had 3 non-negotiable demands. Number 1, complete creative control over his character and storylines. Punk wanted it in writing that nobody, not Triple H, not creative, not even Vince McMahon if he tried to insert himself, could force Punk to do anything he didn't want to do. Number 2, a guaranteed main event spot at WrestleMania 41. Not maybe main event. Not we'll see how it goes. A contractually guaranteed main event match at WrestleMania. Number 3, and this is the big one that nobody saw coming. Punk wanted to be the one to retire Brock Lesnar. Not just beat him. Not just have a competitive match with him, but completely and utterly destroy him in a way that would write Brock out of WWE for good. Now, you might be thinking, why would Brock agree to that? Great question. According to insiders, Brock didn't know the full plan. He was told that Punk was coming back and they'd have a program together that would culminate at WrestleMania. Brock was told it would be a competitive back-and-forth feud that would make them both look strong. What Brock wasn't told was that Punk's very first appearance would involve him absolutely demolishing Lesnar in a way that would be so one-sided, so brutal, and so shocking that it would instantly re-establish Punk as the most dangerous man in WWE. Some people are calling this a work. Some people think Brock knew exactly what was going to happen and sold it perfectly. But multiple sources, and I mean multiple independent sources who have no reason to lie, are saying that what went down on Raw was not what Brock was expecting, and his reaction was shoot. The Raw segment, let me walk you through exactly what happened on Monday Night Raw, second by second, because this is going to go down in history as one of the most iconic moments in wrestling. The show is about halfway through. Brock Lesnar's music hits, and he comes out with Paul Heyman like usual. The crowd is doing their typical mixed reaction, some boos, some cheers, mostly apathy. Brock gets in the ring, Heyman grabs a microphone, and he starts doing his standard "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman" speech. He's building up how Brock is the most dominant champion in WWE history, how nobody can stop him, all the usual hyperbole. And then, right in the middle of Heyman's speech, the arena goes completely dark. Not just dimmed, pitch black. The kind of blackout where you can't see your hand in front of your face. The crowd immediately starts buzzing because they know something big is about to happen. 10 seconds of silence. You can hear the crowd murmuring, you can hear people pulling out their phones. And then, cutting through the darkness like a knife, the opening guitar riff of Cult of Personality hits, and the entire arena explodes. The lights come back up, and CM Punk is standing on the entrance ramp. Not in street clothes. Not in a suit. He's in full ring gear. Trunks, boots, taped fists. He's got the same look in his eyes that he had during his best work in WWE. That focused, intense, I'm about to hurt someone look. The camera cuts to Brock Lesnar in the ring, and here's where you can tell something is off. Brock doesn't have his usual smirk. He doesn't look amused or excited for a fight. He looks confused and, some people have said, genuinely concerned. Paul Heyman is standing next to him looking like he's seen a ghost. The confrontation, CM Punk starts walking down the ramp, and the whole arena is on their feet. The crowd is so loud that you literally cannot hear the commentary team. Punk gets to ringside, and instead of getting in the ring, he just stands there staring at Brock. 20 seconds go by. 30 seconds. The tension is unbearable. Then Punk does something nobody expected. He walks over to the timekeeper's area, and he grabs a steel chair. The crowd pops even louder. He folds the chair and just holds it, tapping it against his leg, staring at Brock the entire time. Paul Heyman gets on the microphone and says something like, "Punk, this isn't how you want to do this. Let's talk about this. We can work something out." But Punk isn't listening. He's laser focused on Brock. And then Brock makes the fatal mistake. He starts laughing. He starts talking trash. You can't hear exactly what he's saying, but he's clearly dismissing Punk as a threat. He's doing the Brock thing where he's bouncing around, doing his little shoulder roll, acting like he's going to destroy Punk without breaking a sweat. Punk slides into the ring, chair in hand. The referee is trying to get between them, but Punk just shoves him aside. Security starts running down the ramp, but Punk holds up one finger, the "just a minute" gesture, and turns back to Brock. The destruction begins. What happens next is where things go completely off script. Brock charges at Punk, going for a spear or a takedown, but Punk sidesteps him, and as Brock goes past, Punk swings the chair and cracks him across the back. Not a worked wrestling chair shot. A real chair shot. The sound echoes through the entire arena. Brock goes down to one knee, and you can see him grimacing in real pain. Before Brock can recover, Punk hits him again, and again, and again, for consecutive chair shots to the back, each one sounding worse than the last. Brock is now face down on the mat, and the crowd has gone from cheering to this stunned silence mixed with shocked gasps. Security finally gets to the ring and tries to pull Punk away, but Punk fights them off. He literally starts throwing security guards around like they're nothing. One guy gets hit with the chair. Another gets kicked in the face. Punk is possessed, and nobody can stop him. He goes back to Brock, who's trying to get up, and Punk hits him with a GTS, the go to sleep. But here's the thing, Brock doesn't take the move cleanly. His head actually connects with Punk's knee in a way that looks legitimate and devastating. Brock crumples to the mat, and he's not moving. More security floods the ring. They finally manage to separate Punk from Brock, but not before Punk grabs the microphone and says, and I'm quoting this exactly because it's been replayed a million times, "Brock, your time is up. You've been playing fighter. I am a fighter. And I just ended your career." The aftermath in the arena, the camera stays on Brock Lesnar, who is still down in the ring. Paul Heyman is kneeling next to him, looking genuinely panicked. Medical staff rushes to the ring with a stretcher. And here's where you know something is really wrong. Brock isn't getting up. He's not doing his usual thing where he pops up after a few seconds to show how tough he is. He's laying there, holding his head, and he looks legitimately hurt. The arena is in shock. Half the crowd doesn't know if they should cheer or be concerned. The other half is completely silent, watching medical personnel tend to Brock. CM Punk is on the ramp, being held back by about 20 security guards, and he's got this look on his face that's half satisfaction, half rage. They eventually get Brock onto the stretcher and start wheeling him out of the arena. The crowd gives him a respectful ovation, because despite everything, people don't want to see someone actually get hurt. As they're wheeling him past Punk on the ramp, Punk yells something at Brock that the cameras don't pick up clearly, but lip readers on social media later claim he said, "That's what you get." Raw goes to commercial, and when they come back, Michael Cole and the commentary team look shaken. Cole says that Brock Lesnar has been taken to a local medical facility for evaluation and that they'll provide updates as they become available. The show continues, but nobody in that arena or watching at home is paying attention to anything else. Everyone is trying to figure out what just happened and whether it was real or staged. The backstage chaos. Now let me tell you what was happening backstage during all of this, because this is where the story gets even crazier. According to multiple sources who were present, as soon as Punk's music hit, there was complete pandemonium at gorilla position. Producers were scrambling, looking at each other asking, is this the plan? Did we know about this? Triple H was supposedly in his office and came running out when he heard the music. Here's the thing, only about 5 people in the entire company knew that Punk was going to show up. Triple H obviously knew. Nick Khan knew. A couple of top producers knew, but the vast majority of the roster, the crew, the production team, they had no idea. So when Punk's music hit, it was a legitimate shock to almost everyone. As the segment was happening, word spread through the backstage area like wildfire. Wrestlers came out of their locker rooms and gathered around monitors to watch. Some people were excited. Some people were nervous. And some people, specifically guys who had heat with Punk in the past, looked legitimately concerned about what this meant for them. When Brock was being taken out on the stretcher, he was brought backstage, and according to eyewitnesses, he was furious. Not selling, not staying in character, but legitimately angry. He was yelling at medical staff to get off him, he was demanding to know what happened, and he specifically wanted to talk to Triple H and Punk immediately. Brock was taken to a private medical room where the WWE doctor examined him, and here's where reports start to vary. Some sources say that Brock was fine, that he was just selling really well. Other sources say that Brock actually suffered a concussion from the GTS and was genuinely hurt. And a third set of sources says that while Brock wasn't seriously injured, he was completely blindsided by how stiff the segment was and felt like he'd been set up. The meeting, about an hour after the segment, while Raw was still on the air, there was allegedly an emergency meeting in Triple H's office. In attendance, Triple H, CM Punk, Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, Nick Khan, and several producers. The meeting lasted approximately 45 minutes, and according to people who were nearby, voices were definitely raised. The basic breakdown of what happened, based on multiple sources who were briefed on the meeting: Brock confronted Punk directly, asking why Punk went so stiff with the chair shots and the GTS. Punk allegedly responded that they had agreed to make it look real, and that's exactly what he did. Brock countered that there's a difference between making it look real and actually trying to hurt someone. Triple H stepped in and tried to explain that the segment was designed to be shocking and to re-establish Punk as a legitimate threat. Brock reportedly said something like, "There are ways to do that without giving me a concussion." This led to an argument about whether Brock actually had a concussion or was just selling. Paul Heyman, trying to play peacemaker, suggested that everyone take a step back and remember that the segment did exactly what it was supposed to do. It got massive attention and made Punk's return feel important. But Brock wasn't interested in hearing that. He wanted to know if this was going to be the pattern moving forward or if it was just a one-time thing. According to sources, Punk made it clear that he came back to WWE to do things his way, and that if people couldn't handle his intensity, maybe they were in the wrong business. This did not go over well with Brock, who has his own reputation for intensity and legitimacy. The meeting ended without a clear resolution. Triple H basically told everyone to go home, cool off, and they'd reconvene later in the week to discuss how to move forward with the storyline. But the damage was done. The trust between Punk and Brock, which was already tenuous, was now completely shattered. The social media explosion: while all of this backstage drama was unfolding, social media absolutely exploded. Within minutes of Punk's appearance, CM Punk was the #1 trending topic worldwide on Twitter. Brock Lesnar was #2. WWE Raw was #3. The wrestling world had completely taken over social media. The reactions were all over the place. Some fans were ecstatic that Punk was back and that he'd immediately gone after Brock. They were posting clips, making memes, celebrating what they saw as the beginning of the most exciting storyline in years. Other fans were concerned that Punk had gone too far and that someone was going to get seriously hurt. And then there were fans who thought the whole thing was a work and couldn't understand why anyone would think it was real. Wrestling journalists and insiders started weighing in. Dave Meltzer tweeted that he was getting conflicting reports about whether the segment went as planned. Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful said he'd heard that Brock was not happy with how things went down. Wade Keller from PW Torch speculated that this could be the beginning of a major behind-the-scenes issue. But the most interesting reactions came from other wrestlers. Several AEW wrestlers, guys who had worked with Punk during his time there, posted cryptic messages that seemed to suggest they weren't surprised that Punk had caused controversy. MJF tweeted, "Some people never change," with a thinking emoji. Hangman Page liked several tweets criticizing Punk's approach. It was clear that even outside of WWE, people had opinions about what Punk had done. Current WWE wrestlers were more careful with their social media, as you'd expect, but a few people posted things that could be interpreted as either supporting or questioning Punk's return. Seth Rollins, who has his own complicated history with Punk, posted, "Interesting night," with no other context. Cody Rhodes posted a gif of someone eating popcorn. Drew McIntyre tweeted, "Let's see how this plays out," which could mean anything. The medical update: the next day, Tuesday afternoon, WWE issued a statement about Brock Lesnar's condition. The statement read, "Brock Lesnar was evaluated by WWE medical staff following Monday Night Raw. As a precautionary measure, he was transported to a local medical facility where he underwent additional testing. While Lesnar is experiencing some discomfort, initial tests have shown no serious injury. He will continue to be monitored and re-evaluated throughout the week. WWE will provide updates as appropriate." That statement raises more questions than it answers. Some discomfort could mean anything from minor soreness to a legitimate injury they're trying to downplay. No serious injury doesn't mean no injury at all, and will continue to be monitored suggests that there is actually something to monitor, not just that Brock is perfectly fine. Sources close to Brock, speaking anonymously, have said that he did in fact suffer a mild concussion from the GTS and that he's furious about it. These sources claim that Brock has been making calls to his attorney to discuss his options. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to sue or break his contract, but the fact that he's talking to lawyers shows how seriously he's taking this. Other sources, these ones closer to WWE, insist that Brock is fine and that any talk of concussions or legal action is overblown. They claim that Brock is a professional who understands that sometimes things get a little stiffer than planned, and that he'll be back on television as soon as the storyline dictates. The truth, as usual, is probably somewhere in the middle. Brock likely did get his bell rung a bit, which would explain why he stayed down for so long and why WWE took the precaution of having him checked out. But he's probably not seriously injured in a way that threatens his career. The bigger issue is the psychological and professional damage to his reputation and his relationship with Punk and WWE management. The locker room divide. In the days following Raw, a clear divide has emerged in the WWE locker room, and it mirrors a lot of the divisions that existed when Punk was in WWE the first time. On one side, you have wrestlers who think Punk is a genius and that his willingness to push boundaries and take risks is exactly what WWE needs. On the other side, you have wrestlers who think Punk is reckless and dangerous and that his ego puts everyone else at risk. The pro-Punk faction includes a lot of younger wrestlers who see him as a rebel who fights against the machine. They love that he's not afraid to speak his mind and that he demands creative control over his character. They see what happened with Brock as Punk making a statement that he's not going to play politics or worry about hurting feelings. These wrestlers believe that WWE has been too safe and sanitized for too long, and Punk brings an edge and authenticity that's been missing. The anti-Punk faction includes a lot of veterans who value professionalism and trust above everything else. They point out that wrestling is a collaborative art form where everyone needs to trust that their opponent isn't going to legitimately hurt them. They see what Punk did to Brock as a violation of that trust, and they worry that if Punk gets away with it, other wrestlers might think they can be stiff and reckless too. These wrestlers also point to Punk's history in AEW and the problems he caused there as evidence that he's someone who creates drama wherever he goes. And then there's a middle group who are just waiting to see how this plays out. They recognize that Punk is a huge star who will draw money and attention, which is good for everyone's bottom line. But they're also cautious about fully embracing him until they see whether he can coexist peacefully with the rest of the roster or whether he's going to be a constant source of tension and conflict. The Brock Lesnar response. Now, one of the most interesting aspects of this entire situation is what Brock Lesnar is going to do in response. Brock is not someone who takes disrespect lightly. He's not someone who just lets things slide. And he's not someone who's going to play the victim and complain publicly. So the question is, how does Brock respond to what CM Punk did to him? There are basically three options. Option 1, Brock goes along with the storyline as planned. He sells the attack, stays off television for a couple of weeks to build anticipation, and then comes back looking for revenge against Punk. This would be the professional approach and would lead to a big money match at WrestleMania or potentially even sooner. The problem with this option is that it requires Brock to essentially accept what happened and move forward, which may be difficult given how angry he reportedly is. Option 2, Brock demands changes to the storyline or his role. Maybe he insists on getting some of his heat back by destroying Punk in their next encounter. Maybe he demands that certain stipulations be in place to ensure nobody gets legitimately hurt. Maybe he even asks to be moved to SmackDown to get away from the Raw drama. This option allows Brock to maintain some control and protect himself while still working with WWE. Option 3, Brock walks away. He's got FU money. He doesn't need WWE. He could go back to UFC, he could go to AEW if he wanted, he could just retire and live comfortably for the rest of his life. If Brock decides that working with Punk isn't worth the risk or the headache, he might just invoke whatever clause is in his contract that allows him to leave and be done with it. Based on conversations with people close to Brock, option 1 seems most likely, but with significant modifications. Brock understands the business, and he knows that a program with Punk will make a lot of money, but he's apparently insisting on having input into how physical their matches are and what kind of spots they do. He wants assurances that Punk isn't going to try to be a hero and take liberties again. The Triple H dilemma. Let's talk about the impossible position Triple H is in right now. On one hand, he brought CM Punk back specifically to shake things up and create buzz, and it worked. The ratings for Raw were massive. Social media engagement was through the roof. Mainstream sports media picked up the story. From a business perspective, the Punk return was a huge success. On the other hand, Triple H now has two of his biggest stars who don't trust each other, a locker room that's divided, and a potential legal and medical situation that could blow up at any moment. He's got to figure out how to maintain the momentum from Punk's return while also making sure that everyone feels safe and valued. Some people within WWE are reportedly questioning whether Triple H properly vetted how the segment was going to go down. Did he specifically tell Punk to go that stiff? Did he tell Brock to expect it? Was there a miscommunication somewhere along the line? These are important questions because they determine whether this was a calculated risk that went slightly wrong or a complete failure of leadership and planning. Triple H's reputation is on the line here. If he can successfully navigate this situation, turn it into a compelling storyline, and avoid any major blow-ups, he'll be seen as a genius who's willing to take risks to create must-see television. But if this situation spirals out of control, if someone gets hurt, if Brock walks away, or if the locker room becomes toxic, then Triple H will be seen as someone who prioritized short-term buzz over long-term stability. The Paul Heyman factor. We need to talk about Paul Heyman's role in all of this, because Heyman is uniquely positioned as someone who has deep relationships with both CM Punk and Brock Lesnar. Heyman worked with Punk extensively during Punk's first WWE run, and obviously, Heyman has been Brock's advocate and mouthpiece for over a decade. According to sources, Heyman has been trying to play peacemaker between Punk and Brock. He's been having separate conversations with both men, trying to convince them that the best thing for business and for their own legacies is to put aside any personal issues and deliver the kind of program that fans will talk about for years. To Punk, Heyman has reportedly been emphasizing the historical significance of this feud and how it could define both of their careers. He's been reminding Punk that some of the greatest rivalries in wrestling history were built on real tension and that if they can channel that energy into their work, it will be special. To Brock, Heyman has reportedly been taking a different approach. He's been appealing to Brock's competitive nature, essentially saying, "You're not going to let Punk show you up, are you?" He's been framing this as an opportunity for Brock to prove that he's still the most dangerous man in WWE and that Punk's attack was a fluke that Brock will avenge. The question is whether Heyman's efforts will be successful. Heyman is one of the most persuasive people in the wrestling business, but even he might not be able to smooth over the damage that's been done. And there's also the question of where Heyman's ultimate loyalty lies. Is he Team Brock? Team Punk? Team WWE? Or is he just looking out for himself and trying to position himself at the center of the biggest storyline in the company? The WrestleMania implications. Let's talk about WrestleMania 41, because that's really what all of this is building toward. According to sources, the original plan was for CM Punk vs. Brock Lesnar to be one of the main events of WrestleMania, possibly even the main event depending on what else is happening with the World Championships. The match was envisioned as a dream match that would draw huge money and mainstream attention. Punk, the returning legend who walked away from WWE and became an icon outside of the company. Brock, the unstoppable monster who's dominated WWE for years. The story writes itself: the rebel versus the beast, the technician versus the powerhouse, the man who speaks his mind versus the man who lets his fists do the talking. But now, with all of this backstage drama, there are real questions about whether that match can still happen and whether it will deliver what WWE needs it to deliver. If Punk and Brock legitimately don't trust each other, how are they going to have a 20-plus minute match at WrestleMania where they need to execute complex spots and tell a compelling story? WWE has a few options. Option 1, they move forward with the match as planned and hope that Punk and Brock can be professional enough to put their issues aside and deliver. The upside is that real tension often translates to better matches because the audience can sense that something genuine is happening. The downside is that someone could legitimately get hurt or the match could be awkward if they're not working together properly. Option 2, they bring in a third person and make it a triple threat. Maybe add Seth Rollins or Drew McIntyre or someone else who can work with both guys and act as a buffer. This would allow them to still capitalize on Punk's return and Brock's star power while reducing the risk of things going wrong. Option 3, they split them up and put them in separate matches. Maybe Punk works with someone else, and Brock works with someone else, and they save the Punk-Brock match for a later date when everyone is cooled off. The problem with this option is that it wastes the initial momentum and buzz from Punk's return. My sources indicate that WWE is currently sticking with option 1 but has contingency plans in place for options 2 and 3 if needed. They're monitoring the situation closely and will make a final decision based on how things develop over the next few weeks. The ratings and business impact. Let's talk cold hard numbers, because at the end of the day, WWE is a business, and the success or failure of this angle will be measured in dollars and ratings. And by those metrics, CM Punk's return has been an unquestionable success so far. The Raw after Punk's return did a huge number, the highest rating for Raw in months. The key demographic numbers were strong. Social media engagement was off the charts. YouTube clips of Punk's attack on Brock have been viewed tens of millions of times. This is exactly the kind of mainstream attention that WWE wants and needs. Merchandise sales have also spiked. CM Punk t-shirts, which weren't even available through WWE's official shop before his return, sold out within hours of being added to the website. There's been a surge in interest in the WWE Network or Peacock, with people going back to watch Punk's greatest matches and promos. The advertising and sponsorship side is interesting. Some sponsors have expressed concern about the violence of the segment and whether it aligns with their brand values. but other sponsors and potential partners have expressed increased interest in WWE because of the buzz and attention that Punk's return generated. WWE's stock price got a small bump the day after Raw, which indicates that investors view this as a positive development for the company. Live event ticket sales have also seen an uptick. Shows that feature either Punk or Brock, or ideally both, are selling significantly better than they were before Punk returned. This is crucial for WWE's bottom line because live events are a major revenue stream. So from a pure business perspective, Triple H's gamble to bring back Punk and have him immediately go after Brock has paid off. The question is whether WWE can sustain this momentum and convert it into long-term success, or whether the backstage issues will eventually undermine the on-screen product. The fan theories and speculation. One of the most entertaining aspects of this entire situation has been watching fans try to figure out what's real and what's not. Wrestling fans are naturally skeptical because we've been worked so many times before. So when something like this happens that feels legitimately chaotic and unscripted, fans don't know whether to believe it or assume it's all part of the show.